Isn't it cute, this bag? The bag she showed off was from a well-known luxury brand. I thought she couldn't afford such an expensive bag. To my shock, she said she stole it from the safe in my recently deceased father's house. However, the money she took was for something concerning her. My mother-in-law wasted $30,000 on a brand-name bag and now faces a lonely, sad old age. My name is Mary. I'm 39 years old, and I live with my husband, Jason, who is 2 years older than me, and our son, Brian, who is in the 5th grade. We used to live in an apartment until 3 years ago. After my father-in-law passed away, we moved in with my mother-in-law. Originally, the family home was supposed to be sold, and she was going to move into a senior residence. However, she expressed her desire to live with us, even if only for a few years. She said it would be too lonely to live by herself without Jason and the family. For her sake, my husband decided that we would all live together. Setting a time frame of 3 years, what surprised us after moving in was my mother-in-law's attitude towards money. We were stunned by her reckless spending. Despite being a housewife, she never managed the household expenses. She spent all the money she had immediately, so it was my father-in-law who managed the household finances. She was never allowed to have a credit card, probably because she would max it out. Her daily life revolved around doing house chores with the groceries and items that her husband bought. He would give her an allowance, but she would spend it immediately. So, instead of giving it to her once a month, he gave it to her weekly. My husband, who knew about this system from his father, decided to continue it. The responsibility of managing the household finances was given to me. My mother-in-law, who had previously been in charge of my father-in-law's living expenses, couldn't say anything too strongly. However, now that her daughter-in-law was in charge of the living expenses, she became more aggressive. "Mary, you work part-time, right? It must be tough managing work and household chores. Let me at least do the shopping," she said. It was obvious what she was up to, so I gently declined. "No, I'll do the shopping on my way back from work. Thank you for your concern." "Oh, so you're just going to ignore my goodwill? Then I won't help with the chores at all. You handle everything," she retorted. And then she added, "By the way, I'd prefer the allowance once a month, not weekly." It was clear she would spend it all right away, so I asked, "Can I discuss this with Jason first? There is no need to bother him for such a small matter." "What do you all think of me? It's just an allowance," she snapped, not listening to me. So, I ended up changing her allowance to once a month. She wandered around every day without doing any housework. At the beginning of the month, she always brought home paper bags from shopping trips. By mid-month, she would come back empty-handed. I figured she'd spent all her allowance. Then, I got an idea. However, after a few days, she would return with shopping bags again. Was she getting money from somewhere else? I confronted my husband with my suspicions. "Have you been giving your mother more money?" I asked. With a guilty expression, he said, "She told me she really needed money, so I gave her a little from my allowance." "You know that's not good for her, right?" "I know," he admitted. "But she probably wants to shop to distract herself from the loneliness of losing her husband. We moved here to help her cope with that. Relying on money is not the solution," I said firmly. "I think we should stop giving her money from now on." My husband looked reluctant, seeming unwilling to stop giving his mother money. For 3 years, she had been living an indescribable life, and our temporary living arrangement with her was coming to an end. During these 3 years, my husband had been giving her pocket money as she demanded. I wondered if she would be okay starting to live on her own. We were approaching the time to start the paperwork for her new residence when I received news that my father had collapsed. He lived alone in an apartment. My mother had passed away when I was little, so he raised me on his own. Hearing that he had fallen, I rushed to the hospital. The diagnosis was cancer, and it had already spread throughout his body. There was nothing to be done. He had 3 months left to live. He wasn't interested in life-prolonging treatment and wished to spend his remaining days at home with palliative care. "I want you to live even a little longer, Dad. I want you to see Brian grow up. Don't worry about the money. Please get the treatment," I begged him repeatedly. But no matter how much I pleaded, his decision remained unchanged. I have no regrets in my life. I've raised you, Mary, and I feel accomplished. Now I want to prepare to peacefully depart to join your mother. With that, he was discharged from the hospital and arranged for home nursing on his own. Eventually, I respected my father's wishes and visited him as often as possible with my son Brian. Knowing his grandfather's time was limited, Brian started taking many photos with him. I used my smartphone to capture these moments, printed them, and showed them to my father. These snapshots of our daily lives grew into not just one album but two, then three. My father would look through these albums every day. He said he wanted some of the photos to be placed in his coffin. This peaceful life came to a sudden end one day. After my part-time job, I received a phone call from the hospital in charge of home care. My father's condition had deteriorated, and he had to be hospitalized. When I arrived, I could tell his end was near. I contacted my husband, asking him to bring Brian, and while waiting, I held my father's hand, praying he'd hang on. He did, passing away just as my husband and Brian arrived. Brian burst into tears, and my husband was in shock. As for me, I tried to hold back, but tears rolled down my cheeks. With my father's passing fresh in our hearts, we immediately began the funeral preparations. My husband actively helped with my father's funeral preparations, drawing on the challenging experience of his own father's passing 3 years prior. We were able to apply those lessons to smoothly prepare for my father's funeral. Although my father didn't want a big funeral, many people who were grateful to him during his lifetime reached out, and both the wake and the funeral were well attended. I felt proud of my father. Despite the busy situation, my mother-in-law seemed to be enjoying herself following my father's death. After the funeral and the subsequent memorial ceremonies, things finally started to calm down. Having been away from home for a while, we returned to find my husband's family home in disarray. Despite my mother-in-law being at home, it was clear she hadn't done any housework. However, one corner of the living room was strangely tidy. Even someone like me, with no interest in luxury brands, could instantly recognize several high-end brand bags. They weren't mine, of course, so they must have belonged to my mother-in-law. But I hadn't given her enough money to afford such luxury. Just as I was about to ask her about it, she returned home. Noticing me eyeing the bags, my mother-in-law said, "Aren't they lovely?" "I've wanted them for so long," she said gleefully. What I really wanted to know was where she got the money for these bags. "Excuse me, while the bags are indeed wonderful, where did you get the money? I don't believe I've given you nearly enough to afford them." With a sly grin, she responded, "I had some unexpected income." Unexpected income. It was impossible for my mother-in-law to have such a source of income. "Please be honest, where did this unexpected income come from?" I pressed her firmly. "I found it when I went to your father's apartment. There was $30,000 in cash in a safe there. That's the money you're inheriting, right?" I thought it was okay for a mother-in-law to use her daughter-in-law's money. After all, you weren't really filial to your own father, right? So I figured I'd use $30,000 on your behalf. Did you spend all the money? "Yes, I spent it all in the blink of an eye," she replied with excitement, apparently not noticing my expression growing colder. "Do you understand what that $30,000 was for?" Even when I asked this, she laughed and replied, "It's the money you're inheriting from your father, but $30,000 is a rather small inheritance." I told her the truth. That money was the entrance fee for your senior citizen's apartment. With an incredulous expression, my mother-in-law looked at me. "What do you mean? Why was the money in your father's room?" she asked, starting to panic. "First of all, it's all your fault. You just spend money without thinking. Your late husband left a significant inheritance, and I don't know what you spent it on, but in the end, only this $30,000 remained. We hid it once we realized, and yet you dared to use it." Finally, understanding the gravity of the situation, my mother-in-law said, "Wait a minute. Without that $30,000, where am I supposed to live? I can't continue living here with you, can I?" I answered calmly, "No, you can't. This house has deteriorated a lot. Simple renovations won't fix it." "Then what will you do with this house? Where will you and Jason live?" she asked, worried. "We will demolish this house and sell the land. This house is in Jason's name, and if he decides to do so, you have no say in it." "Then where are you two going to live?" "We've already bought our own home, so we'll be moving there." "You won't take me with you?" "I was prepared for this," she pleaded. "We can't live with you anymore. You have debts, don't you? We will not help you pay them off." She looked startled, probably not expecting that I knew about her debts. "What? How do you know about my debts?" "We saw the reminders for payment, about $20,000 in total, right?" Her face grew pale. "Did you think we would repay it for you? Both Jason and I are tired of your reckless spending. We've decided to cut ties with you. We just wanted to help you move to the senior citizens' apartments. We are truly disappointed in you." As I said this, my mother-in-law collapsed to her knees. When my husband returned home, she immediately cried to him, but he already knew of her actions and offered no sympathy. Even Brian, our fifth-grade son, had distanced himself from her. Despite his age, he had been disliking her for a while and fully understood the situation. There was zero chance that Brian would side with his grandmother. Abandoned by her son and grandson, my mother-in-law had nothing left but the brand-name bags she bought for $30,000, shining brightly in the corner of the room. While we were busy preparing, our new home was completed and moving day was approaching. My mother-in-law had not yet decided where she would live. Although the date to demolish the old family home hadn't been set, it was decided that it would be torn down and sold soon. Before that, we needed to get my mother-in-law to move out, but she didn't seem to have any intention of doing so. Moreover, seeing us packing, she began packing her belongings as well. I spoke to my mother-in-law. "There's no room for you in the new house. We have no intention of living with you. Please find a place to live on your own." My mother-in-law responded arrogantly, "What do you think of me? You're saying there is no room for me? Just give me your room and take me to the new house." No matter how grandly she spoke, it wouldn't change our minds. Did you think yelling would change our feelings? Maybe you should think about your debts. You've been receiving a lot of collection notices, right? If debt collectors come to this house, we'll leave immediately. My mother-in-law always fell silent when her debt was brought up. We thought that if she sold the luxury bags she bought for $30,000, she could repay her $20,000 of debt, but she wouldn't. Her actions were mysterious. Eventually, my husband decided to rent an apartment for her. It wasn't a senior residence, but a cheap, cramped, run-down apartment. My husband moved her belongings there, forcing her to live there. "How can you make your mother live in such a place? What kind of son are you?" she exclaimed. Soon after moving in, she was reprimanded by the landlord for being too noisy. Her reckless spending didn't change. When her pension came in, she'd spent 2 months' worth in about a week. She would borrow money for living expenses, and when that ran out, borrow again. Her debt snowballed to $30,000. At this rate, she might be evicted from the apartment. To avoid her debt problems affecting us, my husband formally cut ties with her. We didn't share our new address with her and changed our phone number. I once asked my husband, "Are you okay with what happened to your mother?" He firmly replied, "Someone who thinks they can just use your inheritance and casually spend $30,000 is not a parent to me." He had no regrets. Later, my mother-in-law finally sold her luxury bags and managed to repay some of her debt. Though she received a pension, she had to start working to repay her debt and cover living expenses. Working was a new world for her, who had been a housewife most of her life. We heard she was being yelled at by young supervisors daily but continued to work for money. As for us, we began our new life in our new home as planned. Our son Brian is delighted every day in the new, beautiful house. The old family home was sold without issues after being demolished. We plan to save the money from the sale for Brian's education. After enduring 3 years living with my mother-in-law, we hope for a peaceful life as a family of 3.